Hi there. Okay. 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 Shut up. Shut up. Okay. So this is my first video, but I'm gonna try to do my best. Oh wait, this is not my first video. Actually, I have some speed paints before this, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, so spoiler warning for Jeff the Killer and the Invisible Man. So a little while ago, I finished reading H.G. Wells's The Invisible Man, and I also watched Davis Morgan's video on Jeff the Killer, which I really recommend if you don't feel like reading that creepypasta. Anyways, so I had this idea, like, what if I switched like a famous horror / sci-fi novel with a creepypasta? So that's basically what I'm gonna do. So starting with the first design, I'm going to be turning the Invisible Man into a creepypasta. So, like, for a quick recap of the original book, there's this guy, his name is Griffin. He has, like, white hair, and he's really selfish and will do anything that he wants for power. Ends up committing crimes because of his power of invisibility. And he starts being hunted by the police and the people of the small town of Iping, and he finds out that invisibility is not that great if you gotta strip down butt naked for it to be useful. So, yeah, so I'm gonna be designing him first. So he already has like pale skin, red eyes, and white hair, so that kind of already fits with the kind of creepypasta boy description. So basically, for the Invisible Man's news story, I'm kind of taking a lot of inspiration from like Jeff the Killer's original story, which he's basically crazy for no reason, but I'll get into it more later in the video. As for his design, of course, he's gotta be a skinny boy, and he has to have evil, crazy eyes. Took a lot of inspiration from Alastair, the Onceler, you know, all the greatest Tumblr sexy men. No, not Sans. So anyways, so going into his story, like my new story for him, so I don't think that this should be set in like 1890 anymore. He's probably like just some guy who goes around in like a tailcoat. Maybe it is set back then, but it's set in like 2015 or whatever. He's basically a kid who's born with the ability to turn invisible, and this ability of his, well, it's a curse, and everybody in his town just completely makes fun of him for it. Like, he goes evil because of this. Like, his dark side is awakened, and he just has to let out his inner demons, and he just starts killing people for no reason, and he's like super evil but a little bit sexy. So that's his story. So basically, I'm gonna read you an excerpt from the creepypasta wiki. It's from the creepypasta The Invisible Man by H_G11LS. So yeah, here's how it goes. The Invisible Man pulled his knife from his pocket. "I have no quarrel with you," he said to Aid as he lunged at him and rolled over under him. There was no chance of escape. The Invisible Man killed Aid until he was dead as a thing of bullets fell out of his pocket and the Invisible Man reloaded his gun. He then turned, and the Invisible Man, all that he could see was his glasses and crazed smile, like a Cheshire cat. And that disappeared also eventually. So yeah. Moving on to Jeff the Killer's design and story. Obviously making something that looks and sounds like a classic sci-fi novel is going to be a lot harder than making a creepypasta, but I'm going to try. So, for this story, I'm referencing The Invisible Man, Frankenstein, Jekyll and Hyde. That's because they all have pretty similar themes. So, like, with my Invisible Man redesign, I want to keep most of the elements of the story, but, like, the characters and the situations, but I'm just gonna change the style. So, for a recap of Jeff the Killer, so basically, there are some bullies in his town that beat him and his brother Lou up, and then his dark side is released. and Jeff ends up like injuring one of the bullies badly, and his brother gets sent to jail without trial. Then it says in the story, a thing of bleach falls on Jeff's head, so that's just so that's why he's like all white with no nose and weird eyes. And also he's like unnaturally strong. That's never explained. He's like super OP and dangerous. So I wanted to keep the element of his brother and the bullies, but I noticed that with a lot of like classic sci-fi novels, like the conflict isn't usually derived from an inherent evil in the protagonist or the antagonist, but usually it's a psychological or societal struggle. So, like in The Invisible Man, it was Griffin's selfishness and disregard for others that led him down a slippery slope of stealing and then eventually killing. And with Jekyll and Hyde and Frankenstein, you know, it's like societal issues that make them into monsters. So I tried to use these different elements as the inspiration for Jeff the Killer's new story, which I will begin telling you right now. So Jeff the Killer is set in the 1930s, like the classic Invisible Man movie, and it's about the son of a wealthy businessman named Jefferson, who was prepared to take over his father's oil plant business. However, his rebellious younger brother, Louis, is not so dutiful, preparing to spend his time in the company of gangs, getting involved in crime. Eventually, Louis's involvement with a gang gets him and Jefferson into an altercation between the police and the mob, and Jefferson ends up accidentally killing an officer, and Louis takes the blame for his brother getting sent to jail. The incident causes Jefferson to go crazy and eventually end up killing his own father because he thinks the world now sees him as a monster because of his disfiguration, and his guilt over the crime ends up making him go mad. So yeah, here's an excerpt from the classic 1933 novel Jeff the Killer by Travis Case. Mr. Woods continued to face away from his son. Now you come to visit me? For a will? Is that what it is, you selfish boy? Jefferson started pacing about the room as his father continued. What more could I have expected? I'm on my deathbed and you pine for my money. Where's that brother of yours? In prison, Jefferson said without turning. Mr. Woods shot up from his bed and made for Jefferson, exhausting every last bit of resolve he had left in his crippled legs. He turned on the oil lamp and went to face his son, when in all the frailty that comes from a terrible shock, he crumbled onto the floor. He saw, illuminated by the dim glow of that lamp, the condition of his son's face for the first time. Pale as alabaster, with a nose almost melted into his cheeks, Jefferson's mouth stood agape, covered in blisters and red sores that formed a sort of grin. His eyes stood out in the dark, melted into their sockets. Mr. Woods lay on the ground, his legs akimbo. He yelled and howled in terror. Do you see now, father? Jefferson said. What I have been reduced to. Jefferson took the oil lamp and held it to his face. Look at this horrible imitation of man, so poorly constructed, so frightfully disfigured. Jefferson's father continued to yell until he began a horrible hacking. Jefferson put his hand to his father's mouth to quiet him, but then his hand began to move to his throat. The father twisted and tossed about the floor, Jefferson's grip on his neck only tightening, until, with one last thud, his father ceased to stir. Okay, so, yeah, that's the end of my video. I hope you liked it. I'm not good at making videos. I hope you liked the designs. I think they came out okay. Bye.